Jalen Anthony Rose.
What up, dog?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
Together with Jalen Jacoby, what is it that we
give the people what they want?
We have a huge announcement in the sports world today, something to discuss on the show. Tiger King will no longer be the main focus of documentaries during this quarantine. ESPN has announced that it will air the 10-episode Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, starting April 19th. Thank you for saving us during this quarantine. Jalen, what do you think?
Wow, I can't wait because a lot of things are going to happen. It's going to reconfirm so many that already knew that MJ was the undisputed GOAT on the floor. It's going to bring people behind the curtain to a lifestyle that I say very often, athletes, when I played, worked out. That means they took days, they took weeks, they took months off. Athletes now, they train. It's 24/7, 365. And you know who usually drives that narrative? The best players in the game. And when you see Michael Jordan at the casino to 4, 5, 6 in the morning with a cigar in his hand, when you see him driving his drop-top Ferrari, when you see him with his three-piece suit on, when you see him with his brand Air Jordans, it's like, I need to do that. I need to be that. He had people wearing big pants and hoop earrings so much that he's still doing it. Like, how about that?
We have so much access to athletes now, and I personally enjoy it, not just from a media perspective, but as a fan. We get to see LeBron James in his kitchen doing, go through his shoe closet and doing TikToks with his family. But back in Jordan's era, there was none of that. And we all had this idea, no matter what generation you're in, we had this idea of what Jordan is and what he accomplished on the floor. But we really know, comparatively, so little about what happened off the floor. And this particular documentary not just has a excellent interview with Michael Jordan himself about himself, something that's very rare, but we have documentary footage following him, what he's like in the locker room, what he's like in practice, what that team was like, Phil Jackson was like. We get all the off-wax stuff that we've always wanted in this documentary. I cannot wait for it. I cannot wait, Jay. April 19th.
And also, I was in the league, a young pup at that time, playing for the Indiana Pacers. And just think about this. My first handful of years in the league, Hakeem the Dream won the first 2 championships and Michael Jordan won the next 3. That's my first 5 years.
Yeah.
Like all-time great top 10 players, GOATs that was out there balling. We played against them 11 times that season that they're going to feature, 1998. 11 times. I only played 10 because I got suspended one game.
Good for you. Good for you. Jalen, switch the speeds a little bit. This one's interesting. It's a report from CNBC that we're all sitting around thinking, if, how, when does the NBA come back? When will we see basketball? And a lot of the iterations that we're hearing lately are this sort of like, I don't know what to call it, kind of like living in a bubble. Sort of like you take the teams, you put them in a bubble, and they don't go in or out, and be very careful about what comes in and out. People get tested and temperatured. It's sort of like this quarantine-style playoff basketball. And one particular location for this to happen would be Las Vegas. What do you think about this idea that I'm not saying is going to happen? I'm just saying it's the most recent iteration of the return of the NBA that we've heard.
I did this yesterday on this program, and I'm going to continue to do it, and I'm going to be the lead domino for this. Can we start also acknowledging the WNBA during this period as well? And they should be playing double headers. It will help with the popularity and the finance of the women's game so very much. But back to your question, the NBA has no reason to panic, Jacoby. You can start the season abbreviated. I've seen a couple of lockouts, was in the league and played 50 games and things of that nature. If you didn't have to, if you could start next season in December and play an abbreviated season and still crown a champion in June of 2021, and you don't want to reset the calendar, that's fine. To me, this is a chance to actually reset the calendar. I think that there shouldn't be NBA games as early as November 15th. That's when they should start. And this year would be a good time to do that. Play summer basketball. If you have to go into September, of course, the NFL is the shield. But at the same time, this is a unique season. And I think fans will still be enthusiastic about watching the NBA completed season.
Absolutely. I think that finishing this season and crowning a champion at all costs is sort of priority number one. Even if that does take you into, this seems unthinkable right now, even if that takes you into August, that, like you mentioned, that takes you into a finals in early September before the NFL season starts. Like, no big deal. We can make up for it on the back end. Like these 3-4 months, whatever you lose, make up for that next year. Maybe you don't play 82 next year, but I want to see an NBA finals. I want to see confetti fall. And I'm not sure I want to see a victory parade under these circumstances, but I definitely want to see the trophy go to a deserved winner. And I think we would get one in a 7-game series playoff format, whether that's played in isolation in Las Vegas, whether it's played without fans, with fans, whatever. It's something that we all want to see. And if it comes at the cost of the 2021 season, then so be it. Now, one thing I found interesting is we always talked about whether or not they would come back for regular season or they would come back for the playoffs and regular season. Well, Steve Kerr, you remember the Warriors, they did their job. They've got the worst record of the National Basketball Association. That's kind of what they set out to do this year. So they had a successful season. And Steve Kerr was asked about him we're sort of ramping back up and playing some regular season games before the playoffs start, whether that be in the later or midsummer. And he said, quote, "Look for us. Our season is basically over. If the league was somehow to start up again, it's very unlikely we would be playing regular season games given that they'd be such a time crunch. Who knows?" I love that Steve Kerr is like, y'all want us to do what? Play basketball games? Like, we packed it up. We'll be back next year with Steph, Clay, and Draymond, and a draft pick. We're good. What do you think about Steve Kerr's comments?
The opposite of the very fine KRS reference to this show. Steve Kerr is basically saying, they are done. They are done. They are done. And I want to acknowledge something. Steve Kerr and Robert Horry are two of the most underrated role players in the history of the NBA. Robert Horry was with the Rockets and Hakeem. He was with San Antonio with Tim Duncan, and he was with the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. 7 championships. A big-time contributor. Steve Kerr, he had his run with the Bulls. Won championships. With the Spurs, won championships. Under Pop, a front office guy in Phoenix. So he has worldly NBA experience. And when he speaks, it's always unfiltered. That's why I appreciate him. I disagree with him in that manner because what he's thinking is, oh, now Steph going to play. Clay gonna try to come back.
Oh yeah, exactly. He didn't want any of those problems.
That's what he's thinking about. That's what he's thinking about. He wants this season to be over so they can reset it and go again.
Yeah, and I mean, quick aside, I do love the idea of Clay, Steph, and Wiggins, and Draymond, and maybe like a Wiseman or something. Like, I love the Warriors next year. I'm not saying they win the championship, but I know I'll be watching a lot of Warriors games on League Pass next year. But moving on to something that happened today that I can't wait to talk about. There are certain things that happen in the world where I'm like, I can't wait to get Jalen's response to this. So now it is time for something that got very socially awkward. Jalen, we've all spent some time on Instagram Live. You can always catch us on Jalen's Instagram Live every day right around 3:30. And it seems like every time I look at Instagram where there used to be stories, it's just people going live. And I love it. We're all alone in our homes. Get just a little look into people's lives, whether you have 10 people watching you or whether you have 100,000 people watching you. It's just fun to sort of get that peek into people's lives. And one thing that's been prevalent is there's been some young ladies that have taken this opportunity to dance exotically and perhaps erotically during Instagram Lives. And one thing about the Instagram Live functionality is you can see not only who joins the lives, but you can see the comments. A gentleman by the name of Easy Money Sniper, better known as Kevin Durant, was watching one of these young ladies. Not only did he join the live, but he commented on it, the hand emoji. Just a little hi, how you doing? Jalen, what do you think about this socially awkward move from Kevin Durant? I personally love it.
So there's a few terms that I'm learning through this crisis that we're dealing with. One is pandemic. I'm going to start using socially distancing. And another one is essential. And we talked about it a little bit on the program yesterday.
Just don't get us canceled. We can get canceled right now. I just want you to know
adult entertainment and strip clubs is essential.
Jalen, just stop. This is one of your worst takes. You've had so many bad takes.
I'm trying to tell you.
This is one of your worst. This is honestly one of your worst opinions you've had.
I'm trying to tell you
that while we're trying to stay away from each other, you want to bring people together. Social distancing does not work in that
Do
world.
You realize certain environments, it depends on if you have drinks or not. Certain environments don't give lap dance; they give table dances.
Jalen, stop.
You can socially distance at adult entertainment establishments.
One of your worst ideas. This has gone digital. The Gentlemen's Club has gone to Instagram Live, and Kevin Durant is not only going to this virtual Gentlemen's Club, but he is waving. He's commenting. He's not just saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna lurk in this little thing and not comment." He's going there. People see Easy Money Sniper join, and then he's not just really, he's waving hello, just showing a little gratitude to those at home by themselves, just trying to get a little clout from taking their clothes off of the camera. And you know what? I respect and admire Kevin Durant's forthrightness in doing this, because if I was going to do this, knowing he has many burner accounts, I would probably use one of those.
Well, he probably thought it was one of his burner accounts and he pressed the wrong button. But I have to say this, because there's so many professions that are on strike, that are laying people off, that are firing people, that are trying to do what they can to save money. Don't underestimate the adult entertainment industry. That's strip clubs, that's porn. They deserve your support too. They have families as well. And if you and I weren't married and weren't esteemed people that worked for Disney, we'd be doing the same thing. He's single, dog. You got a wife and 3 kids.
I like it. I just like the idea that not only was he there, he decided to comment. You have to actively do something with your phone and announce your presence and get the attention of the person doing it. Like, he did it, and you know what?
Can I teach you something, dog?
Great job.
I love you very much, and you look handsome today. There's so many people as an athlete and as a multimedia personality to say, "Hey, Jalen, you're doing a great job. I'm such a fan of yours. Can I take a picture? Can I have an autograph?" It's the exact same thing with entertainers. It's the exact same thing. When somebody like the Easy Money Sniper is in their comments, this shows a level of appreciation and gratitude for what they bring to the table. I'm all for this. We need more of this.
Great job, Kevin. Great job.
We need more of this. Show the video. Show her video. Show her video right now.
No.
Why?
No. We do not have her video. We do not have that as B-roll. That is not part of our production today, Mr. Rose. It seems like sometimes you get too comfortable. You know what I mean? It's like you get too comfy. We're not in the big studio. We're in the big lights. You're in your basement where you watch Power. You're just a little too comfortable. You're talking to your boy. You just need to realize.
Yeah, because that's what happens when people start podcasts. You know this. Ask the Podfather. This is what happens when you start a podcast. People start to get so very comfortable. They start speaking like they're on FaceTime.
Well, Kevin Durant was the only one who got a little socially awkward in the last 24 hours. A gentleman by the name of Ben Simmons. Now, he has a very high profile, I won't call it girlfriend, but he has a high profile relationship with a supermodel that just so happened to be sisters with some of the most famous people in the world. Obviously, I'm talking about Kendall Jenner. And whether they're on again or off again, not really doesn't matter much to me. But a young lady named Kenzie Taylor, who's on Instagram, she didn't see. This is the part I want to ask you about. This might be more of a soft move or boss move. Kenzie Taylor takes all the screenshots of all the different things that Ben Simmons has said to her on Instagram and on Snapchat and in the DMs, and then blows them up and releases them all out there. So, Jalen Rose, my question is for you. From Miss Taylor's point of view, soft move or boss move, airing out famous people, they're trying to slide in your DMs.
Kenzie, I have to tell you, my dear, this is a soft move. And, of course, dudes and ladies randomly support, randomly hit up, randomly holler at people, and it varies to whether they're in a relationship or not. Sometimes they're married, sometimes they're boyfriend and girlfriend, sometimes they're engaged, sometimes they're single, sometimes they're living with somebody. Like, it varies. So there are times when people try to holler at other people. But you know what I learned about that game, Jacoby? Usually the people that holler at you and or vice versa throw out a little bait. So if he hit you more than once, that means either you was responding,
Probably, exactly. I love where your head's at.
or you was allowing him to holler at you. And let me give you a different example. You would hope that if she was in a significant relationship, that she wouldn't, quote unquote, be allowing him to hit her up in the DMs, allowing him to holler at her because she was in a relationship. So it seems like she isn't in a relationship. She knows he's in a relationship. He was hitting her up. Now she feels like she can't go where she wanted to go. Now she want to try to air him out. Soft move.
I like it, Jalen. I like where your head's at. You know what I mean? Because she framed it. And again, first of all, I'll say Photoshop exists. We have no idea if it's actually him that did this, blah, blah, blah. But like, she framed it in this way that like she was taking these undesired messages, someone hitting her up over and over, like she's being like not really harassed. But the fact of the matter is, you probably sent a little emoji back. You probably sent a little picture back. You noticed. We'll see.
Google. You Wikipedia who it was.
Yeah, you know who it is. You know who it is. And also, like, everyone got too much time on their hands. This ain't the first time that we're going to be talking about this kind of stuff. Everyone's just sitting around looking at their phones all day, you know, when they're not playing video games. But we're going to move on.
I got a really important Darrell Revis question. I want to know what all of it. I got one question. Just a quick question.
Can we first explain to people who Darrell Revis is? So I work very hard, and the producers, the staff of this show work very hard to set up a rundown to make sure we've got the B-roll and all the lower thirds and the graphics, just meticulously managed to have a smooth production. And then a gentleman by the name of Darrell Revis, a.k.a. Jalen Rose, just pops up and asks something crazy. It's probably going to get us fired. So continue, Darrell Revis.
So Jacoby and I are fortunately happily married. I would like to know, how are people that live alone and are single functioning during a time like this? I really want to know.
You know what?
Because you wake up next to your wife every day.
Today we talked about we have our interactive question that we'll always hit at the end of the show. We asked about what's the hardest thing about being quarantined. You know what? That'll be the question for tomorrow. If you are alone and you're single, what challenges are you facing? And hit us up, 985-80-JALEN. Leave us a voicemail and hit us on the Jalen Jacoby Twitter and Instagram account. We'll be asking that question.
Because so I'm pretty sure you don't watch all of Netflix. They need to come with more material. And you don't watch all of the pictures and the videos in your phone. You need some new material.
Jalen, I'm going to move on before we get canceled. There is something we saw coming, but it's significant news in the National Football League. They're expanding the playoffs. There's going to be 7 teams from each conference. But here's, you know what? There's all kinds of labor implications to that, salary implications to that, bonuses, contracts, CBA. But you know what? I don't care about that. I'm not an athlete. You know what I am? I'm a fan. I love the games. You know what this means to me? Wild card weekend. There's going to be a day game, an afternoon game, and then a night game on Saturday. And guess what, Mr. Rose? That's 3 playoff games in one day. Do you know what happens the next day when you wake up in the morning?
What?
Running it back. What? There's going to be a day game at 1 o'clock, a 4 o'clock, and an 8 o'clock. The implications are amazing. I'm going to get 3 meals out of this. I'm going to do like a dozen beers that day. Honestly, I'm going to say goodbye to my family at like noon that day. And I'm going to show up after everyone's asleep. I'm so excited about Wild Card Weekend. I don't even care. I just got to survive. We all just need to survive the coronavirus to get to Wild Card Weekend next year in the playoffs. I am so hyped about it. And listen, I know that there's business implications and rating implications and CBAs and contracts and television rights and all that. Y'all can figure that out in the background. I'm just excited about those 2 days of my life next year. Giving something to look forward to during these times. Yourself.
I can't front. I love football like the next red-blooded American. And at some point, each of us are going to be lined up at our front door like a steeplechase, just ready to run outside.
Mm-hmm.
Normal and appreciating the opportunity to be able to function and move around. But I have to say something about the expansion. And I know the NBA has 16 of its 30 teams in the playoffs. I always thought that was too many. Look no further than the Eastern Conference. There are certain years where teams are under 500. That should never happen when squads should make the playoffs. And to be honest with you, I'm blindly gonna watch the Shield just like you are.
Oh yeah.
But did you really want to see the Steelers this year in the playoffs?
Dog, I don't think you heard what I said. I know you don't listen to me. It's not about who's playing. It's about that day. It's about 3 playoff football games over the course of 10 hours. Like that.
Gotcha.
Oh, I'm just thinking about I'm gonna eat the wings, I'm gonna eat the nachos. I'll get like a steak later. I'm gonna have like 4 cups of coffee, 12 beers. It's going to be. It's like I might go to Vegas. I'm gonna go to Vegas. You know what? I'm gonna book a hotel. I'm gonna get a suite in Vegas for the next wild card weekend, and I'm gonna get you a suite too. I know you're not gonna come, but I'll just give it to somebody else. I'm just gonna book you one. Jalen, we are all dealing with the coronavirus in different ways and quarantine. It's sort of a national pandemic, a global pandemic, and a tragedy. It is. There's going to be a lot of loss of lives. But one thing we have to do on this day is pay some homage and respect to one single life that we lost a year ago today, and that is the musician Nipsey Hussle. Not just a musician, did so much outside of the studio and in his community. Jalen, you can have the floor to represent the life of Nipsey Hussle.
Well, represent neighborhood Nip, and I actually had a place for a really long time in downtown Los Angeles. Got a chance to shake hands and kiss babies with them. We both represented by The Rock. We both represented by Puma. You've seen me wear the marathon gear on this program. Shout to Lauren London and his brother Black Sam, the way they hold down his legacy. And you mentioned one of my favorite things about him, and I try to do this in my own life, how he was 10 toes down in his community. And it's always that balance, Jacoby, of when I'm dipping and dodging in the hood or when I'm too grounded to where jealousy can sometimes lead to my downfall. And that's a revolving door. That's a revolving door that I've had to navigate in particular since I got to college. And he did a really good job of it. It was just an unfortunate day that took place. But one of the things that happened in his untimely passing is that so many people got introduced to his music. Because I remember initially hearing 4 in the morning, and I was like, wait a minute. And I know artists don't like this, but usually sometimes you're influenced by where you grow up. So sometimes you just are fall into a sound and you don't realize it. Like Detroit, sometimes we have a sound. LA has a sound. Oakland has a sound. Atlanta has a sound. Miami has a sound. It just you fall into it. Texas has a sound. And when I first heard him, I didn't know where he was from. That's what threw me off. I was like, usually I fancy myself as a whack DJ. And when I hear somebody, I can kind of pick up where they're from.
Of course.
And I was like, I don't know where he's from. I was like, is he from the Bay? Is he from the Midwest? And then I was like, oh, he's from Cali. He's from Crenshaw. I was like, yo. And ever since then, he was one of those underground cats that I was listening to. And he was on his way to superstardom. So a year after his passing, I just want to pay homage.
Of course. Now back to sports. Our colleague Brian Windhorst, he's got his own podcast. You can listen to that. You can also listen to Mina Kimes and her podcast, The Daily, every day, wherever you listen to podcasts, after you're done listening to Jalen and Jacoby. So Windhorst said that the Nets, obviously, they're going to look a lot different next year than they look this year. And they have a gentleman by the name of Kevin Durant who will be playing professional basketball in that Brooklyn uniform. They have a gentleman by the name of Kyrie Irving who was on and off the court this year. He'll be on the court next year. And Karis LeVert, who, had some bright flashes and some injury problems throughout this year. Well, Wendy's saying that perhaps after they fired Kenny Atkinson, they might make another big move and look for a third star. Now, you and I are both very familiar with how the league is shaped and the stars that may be available for trade and the ones that have contracts coming up and what could possibly happen. The list isn't very long of stars that the Nets could acquire via free agency or more reasonably via trade. Jalen, do you think that they run it back with the two of them plus the pieces they have with some tweaks? Or do you think they go all in and trade some of their young, players that have a lot of potential, like Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, and Jared Allen and others, to bring in a third star to form a trio in the Eastern Conference.
So if you can get a third star, you do it, because the East, while Giannis is dominant, I think he deserves to be back-to-back MVP. The Bucks ran away with the last 2 regular seasons. And the Celtics show promise. Obviously, the Sixers have 2 perennial all-stars, but none of those teams led by any of those players have ever won a conference. So therefore, it makes it wide open. If you can get a third star, you do so. This reminds me of the Eastern Conference. Shout out to Jason Ayer. April 19th, the Jordan Doc 10-part series airing on ESPN. This reminds me of the period when MJ retired. And I know we talk so very much about certain teams that won the East and made it to the finals, and usually give more credit to a couple of teams than others. But I just want to say something. When MJ retired in 98, the East was a revolving door.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the teams that won it, the Knicks.
These Nets. The Nets that we're talking about right now, the Nets won it too.
The Knicks, the Pacers, the Sixers. We talk a lot about the Allen Iverson team. Of course, Bubba Chuck is my brother, and he a GOAT, and I love competing against him. But there are a lot of teams, if you want to say, oh, they such and such and such and such found their way to the finals. You can say that about the Knicks, the Pacers, the Pistons, and then all of a sudden, the Pistons was like, hold on, we about to run this thing back. We got Rasheed Wallace. We got Ben Wallace, Defensive Player of the Year. We got Chauncey Billups, Finals MVP. And then the Spurs in the West were consistent. But the East was still open, and then LeBron left Cleveland. He got there once with Cleveland, and then when he left Cleveland to go to Miami, that's when the East started to have a team to get there 2 or 3 years. The Celtics got there a couple of years. Like that.
You started seeing the pecking call. There was kind of like a hierarchy. There's the haves and have-nots. It wasn't just wide open like it is now. Now, Jalen, before we finish up the show, we always have to give the people what they want. Now, if you follow the Jalen Jacoby Twitter account, the Jalen Jacoby Instagram account, we always ask you questions because we say we give the people what they want, and we ask you some questions. Today, we wanted to know what was the hardest thing about the quarantine for you to deal with. And the first question that we have is from Hunter on Twitter. And Hunter, he had something that's I know is going to hit home for you. Hunter said the hardest thing is finding a black market barber. Jalen, it's not easy. And today, I don't have anybody over my house. I don't touch anybody. I don't go near anybody. I wear masks and gloves when I go to stores. I'm not playing with the Ronnie Roan. I'm not playing with the Ronnie Roan. If you don't have my last name, I ain't touching you. I'm not touching anybody. I'm not giving anybody a dap until like 2021. So, Jay, what are you doing with the barber situation, and what's your advice to Hunter? My advice to Hunter is get yourself some clippers, give yourself a little cut like I did myself. No problem. Still look fresh, no fade, all the same length. Still looks good. What's your advice?
My initial advice, Hunter, we appreciate the support. Thanks for the love. Is I luckily don't look at my barbers as people that are giving me a service. They're actually my friends and family, unlike you. So therefore, me trying to get a cut is really no big deal if they're available. Because if they had it before February, if they had it before December 15th, January 15th, February 15th, March 15th, I got it anyway because they've been around me so very much. That's how I feel about it. As it relates to black market barbers, this is where investing and being loyal comes in. All of those people that try to shortchange the barber, all of those people that try to come late, all of those people like you that ain't consistent to get a cut from other people, this is why I ain't dealing with you because I can't trust you right now.
Well, listen, you know what? I always say if you want something done right, do it yourself. I'll always have a nice, low, even little one clip, little no guard. You know, I'll always do that. And Jalen, yours doesn't look bad, man. Yours doesn't look bad. You're just used to perfection. Maybe you don't have 100. Maybe you're not scoring 100 on the exam. But you know what? You're getting a 92. That's an A minus. And I want you all to know that we will be back every single day at 4 o'clock. Maybe 4:04, 4:05. Who knows? 4 o'clock, ESPN Twitter, ESPN Facebook, ESPN YouTube every single day. We'll be back tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Why is that, Jalen Rose?
We're not done. We're not done. We're not done.